Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I work with SEB Housing. This is the information session for the 25 affordable rental units at Norton Links in Norton, Massachusetts. And the purpose of this session is just to give you a little bit of background information on the affordable units, also to discuss the application and lottery processes and what to expect after the lottery drawing. So I have some slides I'll be flipping through during the session tonight. You should see them on your screen now if you have them up, or if you haven't called in, if you have Zoom up on your phone or laptop. And if you have any questions during the session, you're encouraged to either type them into the chat, or I will be stopping at certain points during the presentation. So if you want to ask questions, you'll just need to unmute yourself to ask that question. When you came into the room, you were muted, just so we can minimize any unnecessary noise. And you should have received the disclaimer as well when you came into this session that it is being recorded, and it will be available to view on SEB Housing's YouTube channel after tonight. So anyone who wasn't able to join tonight will be able to view it. After tonight, if you have any questions, the easiest way to get in touch with SEB Housing is to contact us at info@sebhousing.com, or you can call us at the number that's on your screen as well. I want to mention up on the top here that Cam is also with us. Cam Reber is on the call, and he is from the management company. So if you have questions that are specific to Norton Links in terms of the amenities, anything really specific to the property itself, I'm going to pause in just a few minutes so that you can ask those questions, and then Cam might have some information that he wants to share with you as well. Because a lot of what I'm going to be talking about tonight has to do with the eligibility process, the lottery process, and that sort of thing, who qualifies for these affordable units and all of that. So we'll get to Cam in just a couple minutes. So if you have questions, like I said, specific to the property, that'll be your opportunity to ask them. So just quickly, some background information on who we are at SEB Housing. So we are an off-site affordable housing consulting group. We aren't the on-site management team for Norton Links. We've been hired by the developer to market the affordable unit, conduct this information session, eventually conduct the lottery, and also collect and review applications of applicants to determine their eligibility for the affordable housing program. So in the initial phases of this affordable screening process, we're going to be your main point of contact rather than the management office. But then further along in the process, you'll be in touch with the leasing office at Norton Links, and they will take over as your main point of contact once you get to hopefully leasing one of these apartments. So there's a few steps in this process. The first being to apply for the lottery. The lottery application period is open now. If you submit your lottery application and you're found eligible and you qualify for the affordable housing program based on your application, you're going to be in touch with SEB Housing during that process, and we can answer any questions you have on the affordable housing program. We're going to process your application, and we're going to run the lottery and issue you a lottery application number if you're approved. The second step in the process is that you're going to be in touch with the leasing office, and they're going to determine your lease eligibility. So that's separate from the screening that SEB Housing does, and that might include screenings that you might be familiar with from renting previously. So it could include a credit check, rental history, background check, that sort of thing. And then the third step in the process is that once you've been approved by the management company or the leasing office, and you've been found lease eligible, meaning that you're eligible to rent at the property according to their criteria, you're then going to be directed back to SEB Housing. And then at that point, you will need to submit your verifications of income, assets, other information that was listed on your lottery application. So when you first apply for the lottery, it's just you're self-reporting your income. You don't need to submit your pay stubs, for example, your taxes or anything like that to get into this lottery. You just need to self-report the best you can what your income circumstances and asset circumstances are. And if you are following through in the process, you're on this third step in the process, you will need to submit your documentation after the lottery to confirm and basically verify all of that information that you self-reported. And you'll have about a week to do that after the lottery. So before I move on to the eligibility process and talk a little bit more about these apartments, I just want to pause now so that Cam can either jump in with some information about the property, or he can just take some questions from anyone who might have, some burning questions about the location, the amenities, anything like that.
Thanks, Catherine. My name is Cam Reber. I'm Vice President of Operations for Air Building Company. And like Catherine said, if there's any specific questions, feel free to let us know and I can answer them as best as possible. But just to give everybody a rundown of the amenities, the apartments, community features, location, we offer studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom options. We'll have a 24-hour fully equipped fitness center, 24-hour maintenance for any of those needs that take place that can't wait till the morning. We will have an Amazon Hub package system so you can access your packages 24/7 securely. There will be an elevator in the building. We'll have a luxury coffee bar. We'll have a swimming pool. And inside the apartments will feature gourmet kitchens with stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, uh, wood-inspired flooring, dark cabinets, in-unit washer and dryer, walk-in closets, large private balcony or patios, um, valet trash service that picks up 5 days a week outside your door. There'll also be an option for our high-speed internet package up to 400 meg speed. We will have an on-site manager for any of those needs during business hours. And then as far as location goes, this is in the Norton School District, easy access to I-495 and I-95, right next to Reservoir Lake. It's going to be a very scenic location. We're really excited about this one. Also, you can see the rendering in the background, 4 stories on one side, 5 stories on the back side, premium brick and vinyl siding. So like I said, we're really excited to be at this location and hope that many of you will apply for the lottery. And like I said, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Yep, so if anyone has questions about the property itself before I move on to talking a little bit more about how to apply, if, also going to be talking about the lottery and application process. So any questions specifically for Cam? It looks like one came in here to everyone. Do you allow pets?
Yes, we do, and breed restrictions do apply, but there's no weight limits.
Great. Anyone else? And if you think of any questions after tonight about the property, or you're going through the application, or if you just think of something that you didn't think of tonight, please, like I said, email us. You can send us a message or an email at info@scbhousing.com, or that's the main number, that's 617-782-6900 extension 1, that will be able to give you a call back. That is a voicemail hotline for questions. So by all means, reach out to us if anything comes up afterwards that you're wondering about. All right, so I have the breakdowns here as well in terms of, the studios have 1 bathroom, the 1 bedrooms have 1 bathroom. I have the square footage up on the screen here and the rent. So I'll talk about those in just a couple minutes as well. If you haven't already, if you go to SCB Housing's website, so scbhousing.com, if you click on affordable housing opportunities and you select I want to rent, there is a page specific to Norton links. So if you click on that, you will see that there is a downloadable version of the lottery application as well as an information packet. That information packet contains most of the information that I'll be covering during this session. I won't have time to cover everything, so if you are interested in this opportunity, we always recommend that you take a look at that information packet as well. And if you choose to apply for one of these affordable units, you're going to first need to complete the lottery application. So you can submit that to us in one of several ways. Most people email it to us or scan it as an attachment to with an email. You can also send it by regular mail or by dropping it off if you're in the Needham area. We have an office in Needham at 257 Hillside Ave, and there is a drop box there that's secure, and it can be accessed 24 hours. So whichever one of those options works best for you, like I said, most people email it. It would be info@scbhousing.com that you're sending it to. So we encourage you to get your lottery application in early. It's fairly brief, shouldn't take you all that long to complete. Like I said, there is no need to submit verifications or attach any documentation to the lottery application. It's just yourself reporting your information on the lottery application. The applications are due by May 7th. And so they have to be delivered or postmarked by 2 p.m. that day to be considered. You don't need to be a resident of Norton to apply for this lottery. There are going to be several units that have local preference for residents in Norton, and I'll discuss a little bit about that in a couple minutes as well, but that should not at all deter you from applying, because it just means that if there are any Norton residents who are applying, they will have preference or priority on certain waiting lists. And also, and Cam, you can, if you didn't already say this, you can confirm this, but my understanding is that first move-ins are anticipated for October 1st, but you plan to start pre-leasing for the apartments in the middle of June for October 1st move-in.
Correct. Yes, we will have multiple model units with furniture in them sometime in June, and we anticipate our certificate of occupancy to be sometime in September, and anticipating first move-ins in October as of today, but things could change.
Great. And then we have someone here, John, it looks like you raised your hand, so you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question. Do you have a question, John? If you do, you can also type it into the chat. I just saw that you might have raised your hand by mistake, but I just wanted to call that out. Okay. So there will be, as Cam said, studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom affordable apartments available at Norton Lakes. So there are 7 studio units, 8 1-bedroom units, 8 2-bedroom units, and 2 3-bedroom units. The rents are on your screen right now, and the studio affordable units will be going for $1,656. The 1-bedroom rent will be $1,892. The 2-bedroom rent will be $2,128, and the 3-bedroom rent will be $2,365. One of the 1-bedroom units and one of the 2-bedroom units will be built out for persons with mobility impairments. So those 2 units are considered disabled accessible. And households that require the features, the special features of those units, will have priority on those waiting lists for those 2 units. The affordable unit rents, they're not set in accordance with any individual household or applicant's financial circumstances. So this means that the rent will not change if your income changes. So it's not like a subsidy program that you might be familiar with. These are the rents. They're not going to change except for once per year when HUD, so the Department of Housing and Urban Development, when they release their area median income for the Norton area, we recalculate the rents using those amounts in the affordable rent formula, and usually that results in an increase. Your rent will not change at any point during the year. So if you sign a lease, for example, on October 1st of this year, your rent is not going to change until at least October 1st of 2025. And so since we anticipate that there could be more interested and eligible applicants than available units, the apartments are going to be made available through this lottery process. They're only going to be made available to households with annual incomes up to 80% of the area median income. And I'll talk about those amounts in just a second too. There's 4 eligibility criteria for the affordable housing program. And the first is, like I said, your household has to have a total household income that qualifies within the parameters that are on your screen right now. And I'll go through those in just a second. The second eligibility criteria to keep in mind is that household priority is going to be given based on household composition. So, for example, what that means is if you are a one-person household, or you might be a couple that shares a bedroom, you're generally considered a type 1 household. On your application, you're going to be identifying yourself as a type 1, 2, or 3 household. And that basically corresponds with your household size. So if you're a type 1 household, you can apply for a 2-bedroom unit, but the larger type 2 households are going to be placed ahead of you on the 2-bedroom waiting list. So as a real example of that, some examples of a type 2 household are households with at least 3 or 4 people, as well as some 2-person households. If you have the information packet, or if you look at it, page 7 of the info packet lists a lot more information on household types and kind of lists out the different scenarios or configurations of a family that could help you choose what household type you are. The third eligibility criteria is that applicants cannot currently own a home. So if you own a home now, you would need to sell it and be completely off the deed to be eligible for renting or signing a lease at a unit at Norton Links. And then the fourth eligibility criteria, this doesn't come up very often, but if you work for or have any kind of financial interest in the development, or if you might work for the company that is building the unit, you would not be eligible for this lottery or the housing opportunity. You'd be considered what the regulations call a related party. So you can't be a related party. And then just circle back on the first eligibility criteria to explain a little bit more. So the income and assets of your household have to be in these income parameters that are on your screen. So these affordable units are being made available to rent at prices that are lower than identical or very similar units within Norton Links. So that's why they're only being offered to households who qualify for this program. The maximum income limits, the amounts that you see where it says household size 1 through 6 and the maximum income limit, those are set by the program. So if you're a one-person household and you make $70,000 per year, $80,000 per year, you're not going to be eligible for this lottery, unfortunately. But if your household is at or below those maximum income limits that you see for a household size of 2, for example, if your household income is $75,000, you would qualify. You see that there's also a minimum income listed there. So the minimum incomes are not as set in stone as the maximum income limit. Those estimated minimum incomes that you see there are not set by the program, because there are no minimum income thresholds for the affordable housing program, but the leasing office at Norton Links and most leasing offices set a minimum income to ensure that all tenants are able to afford the rent. So these would apply to you if you do not have a housing subsidy. If you have a Section 8 voucher, for example, the minimum income amounts do not apply to you because your voucher is going to cover some of your rent expenses. So you can disregard those if you have a voucher. If you don't have a voucher, you want to look at these and just make sure that your income is near these minimum income limits. It will be up to the leasing office when they're doing your lease screening to confirm whether or not you're eligible for their minimum income limit. So, or minimum income amounts, I should say. So you'll see here that your minimum income must be at least $49,600 to rent a studio at Norton Links. If you make $49,000, but you have a decent amount of liquid assets, the leasing office may qualify you. So just keep that in mind. The maximum income limits are absolutely set in stone. You would not qualify for this affordable housing opportunity if you make more than that, but the minimum income amounts, it's possible that you would be approved for a lease if you make slightly under those amounts. So just to circle back to how we calculate income. So I said a few times now that, verification of income is not required at this stage in the lottery application process. You will be provided with a documentation requirements guide once we get your initial application and we've reviewed it and you're found eligible for the lottery. That guide will detail exactly what types of documentation we'll need from you. So how many pay stubs, what year of tax returns, that sort of thing. So just to give you a basic overview of how we will calculate your income, you can see it on your screen here. So income for the program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So this includes, income that you may not get each week. So bonuses, overtime, that sort of thing. The only exceptions are wage income for minors. So if you have a 16-year-old, for example, that's earning a wage, we're only going to count we're not going to count any of that wage income towards your total household income. And then if you have dependent full-time students, so maybe someone's 21 and they're a full-time student and they're working, we would only count $480 of their income towards your total household income. Unfortunately, it is gross income that we need to count, not net. So the amount that you make before taxes, although clearly most of us know that we're not taking home the full amount of our salary, but according to the program regulations, we do need to count the gross income before, taxes and healthcare payments and that sort of thing. So I see there's a question here. Are there apartments available out of the affordable housing program? So I think what your question is there apartments that are going to be leasing at Norton Links that are not part of the affordable housing program? And the answer is yes. Most of the units at Norton Links are not going to be part of the affordable housing program. So there are the 25 units that are part of the program. And then there are, I believe, 100 and or maybe 200 that are not part of the affordable housing program.
Yeah, Catherine, it's 25 affordable units and then 75 market rate conventional.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, so how we calculate income is not one size fits all. So everyone's income circumstances are unique. Some applicants have a weekly salary, consistent throughout the year, same paycheck every week or every other week. In those circumstances, it's going to be pretty obvious what we will be using to calculate your total household income. But then there's also households who are working seasonally. They might be self-employed. In those circumstances, we may need to look further back into your past in order to project your anticipated income for the next 12 months. So we might be asking for more information if you're self-employed and that sort of thing. If you are self-employed, your business expenses are going to be taken into consideration. You will be asked to complete a profit and loss statement for your business, so we're able to see that as supporting documentation. If you are not self-employed, unfortunately, it is the gross income that we must count and not any expenses that you might have. In general, any income that you have been making, we have to assume that you will continue making it going forward, unless there's some sort of definitive documentation, maybe a letter from an employer saying that you're no longer going to be working this second job, or nobody is going to get a bonus this year, that sort of thing. So just keep that in mind. And then when you're filling out your application, make sure that you're putting any income type that's coming into your household. So not just wages, but if you have Social Security income, pensions, unemployment, compensation, child support, that sort of thing. Make sure that all of that is on your application when you fill it out. Question here, if we don't get selected for the lottery, can we apply for the market rate apartments? Yep, you sure can. The minimum income requirements are still going to be in place. So if you, can afford the market rate rent and you apply and the leasing office screens your household and you pass the screening, by all means, of course. And I think the units are coming on around the same time as well. So you'll be able to speak with the leasing office about applying for the market rate unit. Okay, so I talked about how there was no minimum incomes. So when I'm talking about assets too, so there's no asset limit for rental opportunities. So you might be a household that has a significant amount of assets. Maybe you're retired and you want to rent at Norton Links. We will still need to ask you for information related to your assets, even though there's no asset limit. And the reason for that is because if your assets are generating income, we need to apply that income towards your total household income. So when I talk about assets, it's not just checking and savings accounts, but things like CDs, the net cash value of any retirement accounts, Venmo, PayPal accounts, stocks, bonds, that sort of thing. So again, no asset limit though. All right, we've covered a lot of information about criteria related to the Affordable Housing Program and the lottery. Just a reminder again, if you have any questions, let me know. And I'm going to start on the lottery eligibility process as well. Where can we find the prices or info for the market rate apartment? So Cam, I don't think there's a website just yet for Norton Links, but if there's anywhere that the market rents, if they've already been established, if there's anywhere where the public can see those, just let us know.
Yeah, we're still working on the website. It should be completed this month. It'll be nortonlinks.com.
Great. Yeah, sounds good. So those will be available there if you want to check that further down the line. You have until May 7th to apply for the affordable units. And then, so you'll be seeing those at some point before then as well. So I mentioned if you're interested in this opportunity, we encourage you to apply for the lottery as early as possible to get the process started. Once we've received your lottery application at SEB Housing, we're going to review the application. We'll contact you if there's any information missing from it that we need, and you'll have a chance to correct it and resubmit. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent a lottery application number by email. And that number will be in the form of a series of numbers. So that's just meant to be an anonymous identifier, so your name is not called during the lottery. So like I said, you want to hold on to that number because it is going to be the number that's drawn on lottery night. It's not a ranking of any sort. It corresponds with the order in which we approved your application. So if you're the very first person to submit an application and be approved for Norton Links, your lottery number would be A.001. That email that you get will also confirm whether your household qualifies for local preference. You will have indicated that on your application, that you are a resident of Norton, you work for the town, or you work at a business located within the town, or if you're a legal guardian of a child who is attending Norton Public Schools. The verification for that, similar to the income verifications, it's not required until after the lottery. So you would need to, after the lottery, if you're called forward and you're one of the top households on the waiting list, you will need to provide, a lease or something showing that you're currently living in the town of Norton if you apply for local preference. 17 of the affordable units will have local preference, which again just means that households who have local preference or reported having local preference will have higher or more favorable positions on those waiting lists. So again, that email with your lottery application number, it's also going to confirm if you reported needing a disabled accessible unit. So there's 2 units at Norton Links that are built out for persons with disabilities, and applicants who require those features are going to have priority on the waiting list for those. And then finally, there's a lot of information in that email that you'll get with your application number. There's going to be that documentation requirements guide that gives you a lot more information about what we will need after the lottery from you if you're called forward to submit your income information. If at any point in this process you're found to be not eligible for the lottery, you might be over income or something like that, you'll be informed by email, and you are encouraged to contact us with any questions. Maybe there was a mistake on your end or on our end with, the income or something. So any questions that you have as you go through the process, please feel free to contact SEB. So I mentioned the lottery itself. It's going to be held on May 22nd at 6 p.m. So it's going to be in the same format as this information session. So it will be conducted by Zoom. Depending on how many eligible applicants we have for the lottery, the numbers will either be drawn from a box, and then I'll hold them up to the screen so you're able to see it, and I'll record the session and then also just record the numbers as they're drawn. Or if we have a lot of applicants, we usually do a digital randomization of the lottery, and I screen share it with you similar to the slides I have up here, and you'll be able to see in real time the numbers being generated. During the lottery, every lottery number is going to be drawn or picked. So sometimes when we think of lotteries, we think, there's 25 units, there's going to be 25 numbers drawn in the lottery. That's not the case here, because the purpose of the lottery is to just establish an order of priority for the waiting list that we have to generate after the lottery. So in general, if you're watching on lottery night, it is more beneficial if your number is called early in the lottery, but just keep in mind that that's not the only deciding factor, because you may hear 15 numbers called and only 2 of those people have local preference. Those local preference households are going to go ahead of you, assuming that they are the same household type as you. Household types are, type 1, 2, and 3, like I mentioned before. If you are a, 2-person household or you're a type 2 household, you're going to have priority over 1-person households, including 1-person local preference households. So your household type is weighted a little bit more heavily than the local preference. And then keep in mind too that households could be entered into the lottery and then later found ineligible by SEB Housing or the leasing office during lease screening. Because some people go through the process, but then they ultimately decide not to rent the unit. So if your number is drawn later on in the lottery, you shouldn't lose hope at renting one of these apartments at Norton Links, because there are still a few steps in the process. So after the lottery, we will begin populating the waiting list, and we're going to take local preference into consideration. We'll do our best to send the waiting list to you by email to all applicants as soon as possible. Typically, we send them out that night, no later than the next morning after the lottery. And as long as we have your email address, you will get it right away. If you don't have an email, we'll send it by mail to you. So when you're reviewing that email from us after the lottery, you're going to see your lottery application number on the waiting list, and you can see where you fall on the waiting list. If you apply to more than one more than one unit type, which you can, so if you're interested in both a studio and a one bedroom, for example, please indicate that on your application, so you'll be on both waiting lists. And so you're going to find your application number on these waiting lists, and you'll see if you are one of the top households. If you are, you're going to be put in touch with the management team or the leasing office over at Norton Links, and your contact information will be provided to them as well. And you'll move on to the next step in the process, which is applying for a lease. So you'll have about 5 days to get in touch with the management team over there and initiate that lease screening process. And just a reminder again that SCB Housing, we screen for your lottery eligibility and your affordable housing program eligibility. The lease screening is done by the leasing office. So the management company is going to do that. And again, it might include such things as credit check, rental history, background check, that sort of thing to determine if you're eligible to rent at Norton Links. Be aware that the leasing office, and this is true for most leasing offices, will likely complete a screening for more households than there are available units. So for example, at Norton Links, there's 8 one-bedroom affordable units, but it could be that the leasing office is going to screen more than 8 households from the waiting list to complete the lease screening. That's very typical of management companies because we want to be able to lease the units as soon as possible and not have other applicants waiting around. So sometimes the process is slowed down by applicants or households who don't qualify for the program, or even for a lease. So just keep that in mind. So for this reason and others, if you're the first household on the waiting list, you don't want to immediately inform your current landlord that you're giving notice to move, because there's still a couple of steps in the process. You haven't been lease approved by Norton Links until you get that word from the leasing office. And then after your lease approval, you still need to submit all of your income, asset, and tax documentation to SCB Housing. So don't jump the gun and give notice if you see that you're one of the top households on the waiting list. If you are lease approved, this is the point in the process where having a position towards the top of the waiting list is beneficial, because you will have top choice of affordable units. So if you know you want to be on the first floor, for example, you will be able to select a one bedroom on the first floor because you will be the first person on the waiting list. And then if you're the first person and you lease the first affordable one bedroom unit, the second person on that waiting list will have the second choice of the remaining units, and so forth. So once you've reserved an affordable unit, the leasing office is going to notify us at SCB Housing, and we'll contact you to coordinate your submission of all of your income, asset, and tax documentation that will now be required to complete your final program eligibility review. Hopefully at that point, you've been able to take a look at the documentation requirements guide that was sent to you along with your lottery application number, and you've been able to gather some of that documentation that's needed. You'll have about 10 days to submit it to SCB, and it's a lot of information, and don't worry if you don't have everything in your first submission to SCB Housing. We see that a lot where, there might be one thing missing, and, you don't have to panic. We'll be working with you. Most people do not submit everything on the first email to us, which is perfectly fine. And like I said, we'll work with you to get that full application. Once SCB Housing has approved your file, we're going to notify you, and then you'll be able to sign a lease with the leasing office because you've already been lease approved at that point. You can establish your lease update with the leasing office. Program certifications are good for 6 months. So if there's any possibility that you might move in 6 months after we certify you for the program, you may need to submit some additional documentation like updated pay stubs before your lease update, but I don't anticipate that being an issue here if the units are available for October, and we're not going to be doing these lease screenings until probably June.
Catherine,
So, yep.
this is Cam here again. How does the renewal process work? So let's say that a 12-month lease is approved and they fulfill that obligation. What would the next steps be for the renewal process?
Yeah, so the renewal would happen, if it's an October lease up, the renewal would obviously happen ahead of an October 2025 lease renewal. And what we normally do is, either the leasing office or if SEB Housing is signed on at that point to assist with the renewals, we'll be requesting the information from current residents to confirm 3 months in advance whether or not the household intends to stay. If they do, they have to submit updated income information so that we can screen for the continued eligibility. And actually, what I'm going to talk about now is households. There's no lease screenings between your lease update until the time for lease renewal. We hope, obviously, that households want to remain in the apartment for more than the first year. If they do, that lease renewal process is going to start. So if a household's income has increased during that first year and it is now above 80% of the area median income, that's fine, because households will remain eligible for the affordable housing apartment as long as the total household income doesn't exceed 140% of the current year's AMI. So those amounts are listed in the information packet to give you a little bit of a sense of if you might qualify next year as well. But to give you an example of that, a household of 2 would have qualified for an 80% unit at about $78,000. The same family can make up to $109,000 at the time of recertification. So there's some wiggle room there. If your income increases during the year, it doesn't mean that you're going to need to move out come lease renewal or lease recertification date, because there is some wiggle room there between the 80% of area median income that you needed to have to qualify for this lottery, and then your income can go up to 140% of the Norton area median income at your lease renewal. That pretty much covers most of what I wanted to get through from the information packet. Does anyone have any questions on the lottery process, the application process, qualifications, or the units at all? Cam, did you have anything else you wanted to add either?
I did not. I just wanted to say we're excited to get the property opened up, and hopefully many of you will apply for the lottery, and we'll be speaking with you in the coming months.
Yeah, once again, the application deadline for the lottery is May 7th. So you want to get your lottery application into us by that date. And then if you have any questions after the session or in the meantime when you're filling out the application, please let us know. You can email us at info@sdbhousing.com or the number here that's on your screen, the 617 number. Where do you submit the application? Sure. So there's a few different ways. So you can send it as a attachment to an email to info@sdbhousing.com. If you're in the Needham area, you can drop by our offices at 257 Hillside Ave in Needham. You can mail it to us by regular mail at that address as well. We also have a fax number that's on the first page of the application if you prefer to do it that way. Most people send it to us by email. When will you know for sure you got chosen for a unit? So you don't really get selected for a unit. You get notification as to your placement on the waiting list after the lottery. So the lottery is going to take place on May 22nd, I believe. And you will know where you fall on the waiting list that night or the next morning at the latest. And then you will then need to start the lease eligibility process with the leasing office. If you're found lease eligible, you'll then need to submit all of your income information to SEB Housing. If you're one of the top households who was asked to move forward in that process because you're one of the top households on the waiting list, if you qualify and after doing the lease screening, after doing the final eligibility screening with SEB Housing, you'll be able to reserve one of the apartments of your choosing from the affordable units that are available. So if you're looking for a date that you might know, the lottery date being May 22nd, you're going to know where you are on the waiting list that night. And then there'll be screenings probably for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So sometime in June, you'll know if you're fully eligible. And then Section 8 does not require minimum income. That is correct. There is no minimum income for Section 8 voucher holders because your voucher will pick up a portion of the rent for you. So the leasing office doesn't need to confirm that you have enough income to afford the rent because you will be having assistance. Anyone else? We look forward to getting your application. Like I said, the deadline is, I'm trying to put this slide back for you. The application deadline is May 7th. So any questions in the meantime, please let us know at SEB Housing, and we look forward to talking with you when we get your application. Thank you all. Have a good night. Thanks for joining.